What's happening, guys? Today we are looking at my most wanted Void buffs for 2025. So we have a list. We have most of the factions represented here, actually. So first on the list for me, and actually a champion that's pretty much come back into vogue now with Chimera, is Raglan. Raglan was one of my first revivers and healers and cleansers, because she does it all, but she does need a little bit of an update to come up to current standards. However, the A3 with the 2-turn revive with full turn meter and 75 HP or 75% HP is very, very good indeed. However, she needs a buff on this. This needs to come down to 3 turns. Remove all debuffs on all allies' heals. The heal amount is proportional to her attack. That needs to change to be HP or even defense, but it needs to make sense for a survivable champion that you're not building for attack. And then secondly, make this full team. So that's it. 3 turn and make this a full team. If we really want to go all out, give us an L buff on this. It doesn't even matter what it is, anything at all would be good, but primarily just bring the turn count on that down to 3 and bring this up to an AO or to full team and make her HP based rather than attack based, because the attack based just doesn't work. It's a bit mad. Secondly, then we have Supreme Elhain and the High Elves. So Supreme Elhain I really like. She's extremely strong nuker, ignores ally protection, strength and shield, grants an extra turn if she kills an enemy, damage increase with debuffs. I think she just needs something else on her kit, and I think that is either a self buff, which she doesn't have at the moment, or some ignore defense, and that's it. She just needs a very minor tweak and she'll be playing with the big boys, because she is an incredibly good nuker. I love her. I think she's a really good champion, but she's just missing that little bit from taking her from a mid-game champ to an end-game viable nuker. Yeah, and I think probably ignore defense is probably the right way to go with that. Now, next, staying with the team, we have another of the Supremes. So we have Supreme Aethel. So Supreme Aethel, yeah, she's all about the freeze, self-buffing, ignoring, again, strengthen ally protection and unkillable as well, though, in this case. Has a 100% chance of placing a freeze debuff. Buffs damage when under a shield or when under freeze. Buffs herself, increase attack, increase crit rate. Grants a shield buff, 50% increase accuracy on her for 3 turns, and then grants an extra turn. The value of the shield is proportional to her attack, so that makes sense, rather than with Raglan where it does not make sense. But with her, I would mainly on the A3 put an intercept, or have her start the round on a passive with an intercept stack, and that's it. I think she has quite a good kit with pinpoint brought into the game, but I think her having it in the kit would just make her way more viable at the moment, because I think when everybody thinks of the Supreme starters, they think of Aethel as the worst. If they pull Aethel, it's kind of like, oh, rather than yeah. So yeah, Aethel not really much good at all at the moment. Now, on to Ogren Tribes for the next Void Legendary, and we are looking at Togron. So basically, I think a few of these maybe could get a look at. But Togron, I think we need to get a buff on the description on his skills. Where is it? Is it actually? Yeah. Okay, so fill your bellies, increase the champion's max HP by 10% every time they use an active skill. So that's good, right? Yeah, we agree on that. Resets each round, also increases each ally's max HP by 5% every time they use an active skill, and stacks up to 50%, also resets each round. Will not increase the max HP of bosses. What? Why would anything increase the max HP of bosses? What's the story? So this is what needs a buff. We need to have that cleared up, what exactly it does. Does it mean that it won't do it against bosses or on boss rounds, or what? So that's a bit bonkers and needs to be cleared up. So that was over in tribes into lizardmen, and we're thinking of voids. Some of the strongest voids in the game are in Lizardman. Krisk, huge. Ramantu, huge. Sulfurion, huge. Fighty, huge now as well. Shagor, one of the coolest champions in the game. I love him. I don't have him. But he needs maybe a damage increase and make his passive any poisons rather than just his. So instantly attacks enemies with default skill whenever they receive damage from poison debuffs placed by this champion. When hitting enemies under poison debuffs, heals this champion by 10% of the damage inflicted. So for me, that should be remove the placed by this champion and buff his damage a little bit, and away we go, because I think he's pretty good. But he just needs to be brought up to date, so it wouldn't be a rework or anything like that. I think he does just need to be brought up to date, because at the moment everything is based on being under a poison debuff. Let's see. So Venom Storm attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit has a 75% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 4 turns. The second hit has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 3 turns. So that is all well and good, but if there was, you have to build poison into his kit for that. You now probably have to build intercept into his kit for that. So yeah, there's nothing but downside for him as regards to that. So ideally I'd like to see the poisons being able to become from anybody for his passive to kick in, and a little bit more damage, and I think he would become very, very relevant very, very quickly. Imagine having what do you call him, Calvalax. He can get you can have a go slow team, go second team, Shagur and Calvalax in Stone Skin, and just get the poisons out there and let them go to town. Now obviously it still wouldn't go through Stone Skin, but it would go away to making him more usable as well, I think. Now we are on to our next faction, which is Skinwalkers. I have no notes. Guys. A really strong faction for Voids. Really strong faction overall. Skinwalkers, I have it nearly full. I'll have Marius soon as well. I don't have Bambus. I didn't go from Hackhorn and Bollant. I did go for Bollant and did not get him. So that was a bit of a bummer for me. But yeah, I think they're a very strong faction. I have no notes for any buffs on these. Even Coronar is probably the weakest, but even at that, he is still very good at what he does. But a little bit like Wolverine, I think the best at what he does. Now we're into Orcs. There's the guaranteed fusion there. Bells the Reckoner. Doubt I'll be going for him, just from a mental health and time perspective. And resource perspective in game as well as real world. Just couldn't be bothered. So from these, Angar recently got a rework and it was quite good, so he's probably the best provoker in the game, bar none now. So for my money, Raka is a champion that I really like. She is very good, but her kit, she should be competing with Duchess and Sify and all the rest of it, right? Or even Pythion, but like, she's Void and people would pick Pythion and Duchess before Raka nearly 100% of the time. So this revives all allies with 50% HP and 50% turn meter, then places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. Will place the block debuffs even if there are no dead allies. And then this removes all debuffs from all allies and places increase attack buff and a shield buff equal to 25% of her HP on all allies for 2 turns. I don't know if you want to be using your revive to get block debuffs out there, and having the block debuffs and the increase attack on separate skills. It's a bit unwieldy, and things need to be rearranged, I think, to make it work better in more areas. This then as well, active effect, right? So the passive doesn't have a cooldown. At the start of each turn, places a 15% continuous heal buff on the ally with the lowest HP for 2 turns. Will not place the continuous heal buff on herself. Now, at the start of each turn, fills the turn meter of all allies by 10%. However, that does have a 2-turn cooldown. Just make that every turn. It's too, you know, not having it on tap when you want it makes it kind of useless. So I would like that to be every turn, no cooldown on it. Every turn, everybody gets a 10% boost. It's only a 10% boost, so why not? And that would go a long way to making her way more viable and way more useful. Then the A1 heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of this champion's max HP. Leave that as is, that's fine. We get it boosted up with this here as well. So these two need to be reworked to flow better together. And then this needs to be just every turn. 10% boost. Be generous. It's Christmas. So then we are on to... Let's see, where were we? We were orcs there. So we're on to demon spawn here, and we're looking at Krutraxa. Is the one here, her of the silver orbs, and amazing hair. Absolutely. She is, yeah, so she's an incredibly good single target damage dealer, but even at that, she's outpaced now. So she is a void legendary. She needs something more to make her void worthy. If she was spirit or magic or force or whatever, yeah, perfect. She'd do as she is, but she's void, so she needs something more. So I have 2 suggestions for this. Make the revive on death that she starts with protected. Make it protected. This does not occur with the spiderlings, is a bit meh. But yeah, make it protected revive on death, and then make this has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns, and has a 75% chance of removing 2 random buffs from the target. Grants an extra turn. Make that irresistible. One or the other, not both, because that would make her weirdly strong. But yeah, do one or the other. Make this protected or make that irresistible, and that just makes her that bit more annoying or useful. And I think she'd be quite good and a better pick that way as well. I was almost going to pick Anitwe, but Anitwe, I just love you the way you are. Now, Dark Elves. My shame is I got Fatalis kind of around this time last year, and maybe it was early January, I think. But yeah, Fatalis has one of the best kits in the business. His shield, like, he places a shield on himself every turn for 25% of his max HP for 2 turns, every one of his turns, and he can't be crit while he has that shield on him. He has a secret skill, so obviously that can't be put on cooldown. He has ignore defense on an AoE, and it decreases target's defense as well on it. He has ignore, strengthen, stone skin, increased defense, and ally protection, and ignore 15% of target defense as well, and decrease the target's attack by 10% per hit. That's on a single target, and has an A1 that ignores 15% of target's defense if it's critical, which it always should be. He's void and has a chance of granting an extra turn 1 in 5 times. So you're like, what, Dahi, why does this guy need a buff? What's going on? Why? He hits like a wet noodle, guys. It's just that simple. He's incredibly powerful. Now, I don't want him doing Taras level damage, because that would be insane. His kit is very, very strong, but he does need a buff because he should be able to kill something, anything, please. Oh, there's Live Arena. He won't be coming in with me. Now, Biohack, I have seen use Fatalis and doing some good work, but I've seen him very frustrated with him as well. I've seen Drock being very frustrated with him, and those guys would have, you know, pretty top end good builds. He's a very good champion, but needs a minor buff to damage to be able to compete, and then he'd be extremely good. Now we are on to Knight's Revenant, I believe. Again, no notes. I think everybody here is perfect. Whirlum, really great champion, fantastic. Everybody should use him. No, Whirlum is clearly my choice here. So Whirlum has nothing really going for him. If you got him early on, he'd probably still be Lego book bait, but a 25% strengthen and increased defense on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown is nothing to be sniffed at, right? It is very, very good. But there's loads of that out there. This is a void champion. So what does he bring on his AoE? Attacks all enemies, decrease crit damage, decrease accuracy, and increase crit damage on all enemies for 2 turns. On a 3-turn cooldown, needs a ton of books, and then has a freeze on a 50% chance on an A1 on a single target, and also gives a veil. Now he's a defense-based champion, so he does self-buff with this, which is good. His defense isn't particularly high at 1233, so you can't see that actually, guys, sorry, but it is 1233. So my suggestion for him would be the A3 goes to a 4-turn when booked, but it grants an extra turn. Okay, so it actually increases his turns. The buff increases his turns, but makes it that it's self buff with strength and increased defense on all allies for 2 turns and on himself for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn, and that way it stays at the 3-turn cooldown. If you get me, stays at the 3-turn cooldown, but he has buffed himself to actually then use his attack. And then on the attack, we want maybe decreased crit rate added to this as well, because decreased crit damage is pretty pants, to be honest. Decreased crit rate in there is much more viable. And even at that, most people would say like it's not great, but I know I like Amius, so decreased crit rate for me, I like. So add decreased crit rate to the A2 and give his defense stat a wee boost, because his multipliers are actually alright, but his defense stat is quite low for a defense-based champion. Now he was the first champion pass actually, so compare him to He-Man or him to Xena, or who else did we have? Did we have another champion pass? No, that's it so far. So that he needs a buff. Like if you compare him to He-Man, it's no comparison at all. Dwarf Void Legos, sod right off. they don't need no buffs. We have Tormund Arena King, we have Acrisia PvE King, Senna, the Queen of Chimera with her speed boosting on continuous heals. And Arnorn here is an absolute nuke. Incredibly good champion. I haven't gotten a chance to play with him yet, but yeah, basically he stays alive on 1 HP when hit by a fatal hit, places Stone Skin on himself, then instantly activates Rat of Hrothgleim, which is this one. So yeah, he's an incredibly good champion as well. Dwarves need no buffing at all. They are all good. Now we are into Shadowkin. Definitely not Ryo Yurimeko. Jingwon got a boost recently and is actually quite good. Ayasu is exceptional. Shuzen also exceptional. And Ginro the Stork. Ginro needs a bit of love. God bless him. So he's the odd one out in the Shadowkin. For him, he places the increased defense and counterattack on himself. For me, I think that should be maybe start the round with a counterattack. If he'd done that, he'd be quite good, I think. And then on his passive, his kit's actually quite good. His A1 has a 50% chance, booking to 60% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target skills by 2 turns at random. So when he buffs himself with counterattack and increased defense, because he's a defense-based champion, he'll be able to keep doing that against the whole other team. Now, he needs accuracy to do that. However, on his passive, we see it increases this champion's defense each time they counterattack. Defense resets every time this champion gets a turn. Cut that reset out and cap it, maybe. When attacking, converts this champion's res into additional accuracy. Cut that when attacking out and just converts this champion's res into additional accuracy. So a reverse Matrala. Matrala has accuracy into resistance. Have this guy have resistance into accuracy, and away you go. That way you can build him highly resistant. He'd start off with counterattack. People maybe wouldn't be able to steal it off because of that. His passive would place provoke easier. People would have to attack him. He'd be counterattacking and hitting them with the single target skill cooldown. And we could leave this alone pretty much, I think. Yeah, I think so. A single... we could maybe make that AoE, but I'd be happy with the 2 buffs that I mentioned there. Yeah, start with counterattack and increase res into accuracy. I think that's fair. So those are the buffs. We have nothing here except for Alil. He needs the Fatalis and Mezamel treatment, in that he just needs a slight buff to his damage. His multipliers just don't... I don't know if it's his multipliers or if it's something in the game, but he just basically doesn't do enough damage. He always seems to fall shy of the mark, and I have him with a 5-star blessing. I know my clan leader had him with a 6-star blessing plus 4 empowered, and I think was the only void champion or only nuker even that they had at that kind of level, and still didn't use him because unascended or unempowered champions were doing better. He needs work done. I don't know if it is the multipliers or if it's a glitch. But he just needs some love. Please, Plarium, please. Guys, that's my most wanted void buffs for 2025. So let me know what you think. And I will see you in the next one. Hope you all have a great new year. See you next year. Bye-bye.